Hello guys and welcome. Today we're going to be editing this little newborn. I'm going to try to make this as beginner friendly as possible since I had so many requests for the last one. So the first thing we're going to do is white balance. So all I did was click on a neutral area and then that should fix what's kind of going on here. What I do notice is that it's making the skin a little too blue for my liking. So I am going to bump it back up to the 5200 area. And then immediately after fixing white balance, I'm going to enable profile corrections, which adds a bit of airiness to the edges and allows for more light to be coming in. So now back into the base panel here. I'm going to play with the highlights because I do see a bit of highlight issues here, and that's my own problem. I should have put more of a diffuser there, and that's what I would have done, going forward, or at least put a reflector right here so it wouldn't be that much of a stark difference. Alternatively, you can also bring down your contrast, and then that will help, and then you can come back in here and then drop your shadows. So that's another way to do it, and I think that's what I'm going to do here for right now. And then again, we can also add more clarity by sliding the clarity here so we can see a little bit more of the depth tone change from the background to her skin. Okay, so we're still kind of muted here, so I did bump it up to a little bit more, and then honestly that clarity doesn't really need to be there, and I kind of like her a little bit softer, so we're going to go ahead and go with that. Down here, the only thing I would do is probably bump the whites, but since we are having that issue with the highlights, what I'm going to do is actually the opposite of that. I'm going to pump the blacks and the shadows a little bit. Right about there. Nothing too dramatic. I'll just reset that. And this is how we're looking so far. So it doesn't look too crazy, but we are fixing the lighting overall. And then I'm going to go into here. I'm going to change the orange hue slider over to the yellow a little bit. And the red. So you can see that dramatic change there. And then going into saturation here, and we're going to remove these three colors from our image because they don't actually exist in the kind of in the palette that we want. So if I go all the way up on the blue, you might see that a little bit in the shadows. If I go up on the aqua, you might see that a little bit again in the shadows. The green is most likely going to be the biggest issue we would ever run into, especially if you're working with whites. That's just how it goes. And also the yellows. So you'll notice that this baby has a lot of yellows in her highlights. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the yellows where they are. Now luminance, we can play with this all day. We can go in and make her a little bit more on the lighter and darker shadow side, so we're kind of playing with the highlights there. And then remember how I said her highlights had a lot of yellow? This we can actually drop down like this, so we have more of an even color overall now. And then we're going to go into sharpening and then make sure the masking is over here, just so we're not overall sharpening, we're more like detail sharpening. And then a good way that you can also kind of check where your details are is just clicking here and then clicking like there. And then this is done. This was done with a body that I was having issues with focus, so I do have to go in and retouch the areas like her eyelashes and detail areas. So don't mind my camera shake. I'm not actually sure what I shot this at, but I know that I moved most likely over the 250. It's just my camera having issues. If you have any noise, you can fix that here. What noise is usually in the darks of the image. You might see a little bit of grain, as you can see here. And that removes it, but it can go... Oh. Better said is a little can go a long way. And then here you can see more of that camera shake kind of problem that I was having. And then let's see. All right, So nothing else that I really need to do down here. I could go in and play with these, like if I really wanted to. I can drop this down. What this does is it removes the yellow. This is red primary, green primary, and blue primary. A lot of the times when you're having those presets that look kind of like Dirty Boots or what's another, Small, you see that these are very much altered. So you'll see like this is going off over here, and then this is over here, and then this is going over here. So that's kind of how they work, because it's toning overall the image, so it's under calibration, and you can kind of play with that on your own. I'm going to try to keep it as neutral as possible, but I kind of did like how the yellows were going there, but just do this to taste. Don't do what I'm doing. Your image is going to be so much different. Okay, so one thing I always use is one of my custom brushes, and I do sell this brush. It is not for sale yet, but I do sell it. All it is a whitening brush. It's just kind of like, I think the new Lightroom comes with a new editing, like teeth editing brush or something like that. And it's fairly similar, except for mine. Obviously, I made it years ago, and it works a little differently. So any brush that you can add auto mask on, I highly suggest using auto mask. That way it doesn't bleed into baby's skin, so you can see here. And then also another thing is my brush does brighten, so I do have it creating kind of a brightening setting. And then I do have other tutorials where I go over my white brush and using it and all that stuff. But with this really quick, easy tutorial, I'm just going to go like this. Another thing I would do with this image specifically is probably fix this, and I can probably fix this in Lightroom. So with the other image that I did get a lot of views on, and a lot of people were asking for a beginner-friendly version of it, I went ahead and I just like bleached the whole background out, but that was a completely different studio. So this studio, it has higher windows versus my old studio. This was a rental space. And the higher the light, the more broken your shadows and your highlights will be. So it's a little bit trickier. So getting your baby or your subject up to the light, if I could have gone like higher than this and just had her like up here, but honestly this wall was about a good 3.5, 4 feet. So to get it like her that high, my beanbag would have to be almost double the size. So you can edit this in Lightroom and go in and just blur those edges, and then, or alternatively, if you have a light brush like I do, would be to go ham. So you go in, you use it at 100%, and then you just bleach it out, like bleach out the whole thing. And then what this is doing, again, make sure that auto mask is on, because you do not want it touching that baby's skin. It's going to look super fake. So then it will create a little haloing on around the rim of different stuff. So let me show you what I mean by haloing. So let me go in, go to 1:1. All right. Do you see how that's kind of creating a line there? Like if I go in, let me go in even tighter. Okay, right there. There's kind of like this weird line going on right here. Like you can kind of see it, especially right here. That's a halo. So that's from the auto mask trying to stop itself, or the brush stopping itself because of the auto mask. So then I would just go into Photoshop and then make sure that all of this is like nicely blended. But this is not a Photoshop edit. We're just going to try to do Lightroom. The only other thing that I can mention here is that since the background is so light and then her blanket is so light, we are losing a lot of information there. So if you just delete that and then just kind of leave it as is, I would, you can just leave it like this. I would honestly remove these just because to me they look a little awkward there. And then as far as skin goes, again, I do have a specific brush I use, but being a beginner-friendly video, I will just show you something that you can do. You can just go into exposure here, click it at 0, but you could have even done it to like highlights. So we're gonna go up into highlights here, and then a little bit on the whites here, and then we're gonna make sure that we're not going too crazy. So we're gonna paint over baby skin here, and then we are going to go down in clarity right here. That's gonna add a little bit of softness. And then we can go up in texture if you really want to keep those little details. And then even more so here. And then a new cool trick that has just happened is this hue and saturation. We can actually do what I love to do, which is the HSL in Photoshop here. So we can target those reds that are kind of bugging us right here. So then we go ahead and add this into her ear. And then I'll go ahead and show you what that's doing. And then I'm going to drop a little bit of this. And here. Cute. Okay. So let me go ahead and remove the effect. So that's before, and this is where we were. And again, if you ever want to turn down or take down whatever you just did on the brush, you can go into the effect of the brush and the amount, and this is the opacity that you've done. Like, you can go crazy. And then we can bring it down. So I actually kind of like it in the middle here. Okay, and then we will move on from there. All right, another brush that I will use is going to be our sharpening. And in sharpening, what I'll do is I will go ahead and add some of the clarity and some of that texture and some of that dehaze. So that's a lot, and it's going to look dramatic. But again, we can turn that down. So we're going to brush that on. What are we at? Okay, we can turn that up. Brush that down, like going around the nostrils, going on the little props they have, the band even, little flyaways if we're not going to edit those out, which I probably would because they go a little crazy. And that's more of a Photoshop thing, honestly. You can definitely do it here, but I wouldn't waste my time here. I would go into Photoshop just because Photoshop does it more cleanly and does it a little bit faster. And then just going around the rim of the baby, just to add a little bit more separation from that background. And again, your image would be way sharper. It was just my camera was having a bad day, and I got a lot of camera shake. But you can fix camera shake in Photoshop. Most of the time you can. If it's really bad, you really can't, but you can definitely find some videos on how to fix camera shake. All right, so here's where we are. We're pretty much done. So this is the before, this is the after. Nothing too crazy. I didn't want to like overwhelm you guys. It's very simple. Most of the things was just making sure the white balance was good, making sure that, you know, we like where we're calibrated in the skin tone. If you feel like this is too much, you can definitely go into vibrance. If you're ever having like, oh, my baby's really orange, you can go into saturation even and bring that down. You can even bring down the reds. Sometimes the reds look super punchy. And I would actually not suggest going into saturation for the reds. I would suggest going into red primary and then bringing that down. It just looks a little bit more natural, see? And it kind of takes like that orange hue away too. And alternatively, like I was saying before, you can go down into vibrance and just like take it down. But it's up to you. It's up to you. There's like so many ways to do this. And then again, if you just want to do like a black and white, it's so cute. All right. I hope you guys learned something new, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.